By 1981, Sonny Black had it all working. He ran one of the best crews the Bonanno family had out of a Williamsburg social club, earned across every racket the mob touched, and was one contract killing away from getting his own man straightened out and made. There was just one problem with his own man. He had been an FBI agent the entire time, nearly 5 years inside the family, 2 of them under Sonny. The Bonannos do not forgive that kind of thing, and what they did to Sonny to settle it is exactly the part the film left out. Let's start with his name, because it's the first thing people get wrong about him. Sonny Black sounds like a threat, but it was actually hair dye. Dominick Napolitano went silver early, didn't much care for it, and colored it jet black, and that little vanity is the whole tag. Pistone, who sat across from him for 2 years, described a polite, measured man, someone who could talk to you for an hour about something that had nothing to do with crime. Calm under pressure, plenty of common sense, and in Pistone's words, a real wise guy. That is the man the movie never bothered with. It cast him as a heavy in the corner of the frame and left the rest of him out. He was born in Brooklyn in 1930 and came up the ordinary way, a petty thief who kept climbing until he was middle management in a crime family, which is the level that actually runs the thing day to day. When Carmine Galante got shot to pieces at a restaurant table in 1979, the family reshuffled and Napolitano got bumped up to captain over the mentor he was replacing. He ran his crew out of the Motion Lounge, a social club on Graham Avenue in Williamsburg, and he lived in the apartment directly above it. Home, office, and the entire operation stacked at one address. His people earned across the full menu: burglary, hijacking, loan sharking, bookmaking, casinos, even a bottle club all the way down in Holiday, Florida, running under the local blessing of the Tampa boss. Sonny Black was a producer, and the family had no financial reason to want him gone. Hold on to that, because it changes what happens to him later. And on the roof, above the apartment, above the club, he kept racing pigeons. A capo who could order a man killed on a Tuesday spent his mornings on a Williamsburg rooftop tending birds he'd raised by hand. The movie hands you the tough guy and never once shows you the pigeons, and the pigeons are a big part of why the ending lands as hard as it does. Here's where the ground opens under him, and the awful part is that he never feels it move. Around 1976, a jewel thief named Donnie Brasco starts coming around the family. Small time, easygoing, good with a story. What Sonny Black has no way of knowing is that Donnie Brasco is Joe Pistone, a federal agent, and that every drink poured and every sit-down held in that back room is going straight into a file. The back room where he held court, the one place that proved he had arrived, became the most thoroughly documented room in his entire life. By then, he'd been inside the family nearly 5 years, and the last 2 of them belonged to Sonny. That is not a con you pull off over a long weekend. That is 2 years of a captain vouching for a man, doing business with him, actually liking him, while the man writes all of it down. And Napolitano didn't just keep Donnie around, he was going to make him. He'd decided to sponsor Pistone for the ceremony, the real one, the thing that turns a man into a made member of the American Mafia. The Bonanno family came within one favor of making a federal agent a soldier. And the favor that was supposed to seal the deal is the exact thing that detonated it. Napolitano wanted a rival named Bruno Indelicato dead, clean up after a war he'd just helped win, and he handed that contract to Donnie. Look at that from the bureau side of the table. Their agent has just been ordered to carry out a murder. There is no version of that they can allow, so they shut the whole operation down. In July of 1981, they pull Pistone out, and then they do the thing nobody in the family sees coming. They don't leak it. They don't let it seep out through some rat looking to trade up. 3 agents, Doug Fenkel, Jim Kinney, and Jerry Lohr, walk into the Motion Lounge and tell Sonny Black to his face that the man he'd trusted for 2 years, the man he was days from making, had been carrying a badge the entire time. Fenkel testified about that conversation years later at Massino's trial. He told Napolitano he wanted to make sure of his safety because he was going to have a problem with the Bonanno family, and he held out a business card. Napolitano wouldn't take it. He said the agent knew better than anybody that he couldn't take it, but that he knew how to reach him. It broke something in him. Judy, his girlfriend, went to Pistone about it afterward, and what she described was a man who could not make it fit because of the things he and Donnie had done together, the conversations, the trust. She said Sonny had really loved him. She also said he told her he held nothing against Pistone, that the man was only doing his job, and that if anybody was going to take him down, he was glad it was Donnie. He already knew. He'd signed off on enough of those himself, and a captain who vouches for a federal agent is a dead captain. Sonny Black was no gentle bird fancier who wandered in off the street. 3 months before any of this, he helped organize an ambush that killed 3 rival captains, men who had been plotting to take down the imprisoned boss, and got lured into a Brooklyn room they never walked back out of. It was one of the ugliest hits of the era, and Napolitano was a central hand in staging it, done in the name of the boss he stayed loyal to right up until loyalty stopped mattering. He was a capable, winning soldier on the winning side with fresh blood still on his shoes, and not one drop of that loyalty bought him a thing. The machine he had killed for is the identical machine that turned and came for him, and it did not pause to send flowers. If stories like this are the reason you're here, do me a favor and hit subscribe, because I've got a lot more wise guy history right behind this one. Now, about the order, the decision came from a friend, Salvatore Vitali, Massino's own brother-in-law and underboss, testified years later that the order came from Joseph Massino, a close ally and the family's future boss. And the line Vitali quoted is the coldest thing in the entire case. Massino said he had to give Sonny Black a receipt for the Donnie Brasco situation, a receipt as if the breach were an unpaid invoice and Napolitano's body was the balance coming due. Though Massino himself told it differently, years later on the stand he said the Brasco business was not the reason at all, that Sonny Black had threatened to make a move on the family. 2 cooperators, 2 motives, and Massino was sitting on the panel that ordered it. So we come to the 17th of August, 1981. And this is the exact chapter the movie ships off screen. In the film, the dread of the ending gets loaded onto Lefty, who takes off his jewelry and answers a summons. That moment is borrowed. It's the emotional shape of what really happened to Sonny Black, lifted clean, and handed to a character who actually got to live. The real Lefty Ruggiero got arrested before the family could ever reach him, served around 11 years of a 15-year sentence, got out sick in 1993 and died of cancer the next year without ever informing on a soul. So the film took the fear that belonged to Sonny Black and pinned it on just about the only man in the whole story who got to die of natural causes. Napolitano understood precisely what the summons meant, and he settled his affairs like a man who had already read the last page. He stripped off his watch and his jewelry and pressed them on his favorite bartender at the club. He left behind the keys to the apartment upstairs. He told the man he was going to a meeting and didn't know if he'd be coming back. And his final request, the last thing on his mind before he walked out, was that somebody look after the pigeons. Frank Lino picked him up at the Hamilton house in Brooklyn and drove him out to a house on Staten Island. Frank Coppa met him at the door, greeted him warmly, and told him the sit-down was down in the basement. He started down the stairs, the door swung shut behind him, and Lino shoved him the rest of the way to where the shooters were waiting at the bottom. And this is where the killing turns into something even the killers couldn't manage cleanly. The first shot only grazed him. On the next one, the gun jammed. So picture Sonny Black on his knees at the foot of a basement staircase, already wounded, the weapon dead in the shooter's hand, and he does not beg for anything. He tells them to hit him one more time and make it good, and then they finished him. Coppa who later traded the memory of it for a deal of his own, said afterward that Napolitano died like a man. And then they did the thing the family wanted every captain in every borough to hear about. By the weekend, they cut off his hands. Prosecutors later said it was a warning about proper introductions. Sonny Black had shaken the hand of a federal agent and vouched for him with those hands, so the hands were what came off. His body went into swampy ground on the west shore of Staten Island, and there it sat. Back on Graham Avenue, FBI surveillance watched workmen take the pigeon coops off the roof. It sat there for the better part of a year. They found what was left in swampy ground out at Arlington on the west shore in August of 1982, and by then there was almost nothing to find. What they pulled out was skeletal, the face gone, and the hands naturally still missing. One of the Bonanno family's most successful earners, a man who used to color every silver hair on his head, had to be put back together by name using his dental records. And the genuinely strange thing is that the testimony and the body never quite matched. Years on, the men who did it started cooperating with the government. Frank Lino testified under oath that he and Ron Filicomo shot Napolitano with .38 caliber revolvers and that he himself fired more than once. But the corpse that came out of that marsh carried a single bullet wound, and it appeared to have come from a .45. That is a killer's sworn account of a murder he committed, and the body would not back him up. I don't think anybody was lying. That is what a night like that does to the men who were in the room. Nobody in that basement wanted to remember it clearly. The aftermath is where the irony really sinks its teeth in. The whole reason Sonny Black had to die was the humiliation, nearly 5 years of a federal agent living inside the family, and that same humiliation got the Bonannos thrown off the Mafia Commission entirely. But being off the commission is precisely what saved them, because when the government dragged the commission itself into court a few years later and mailed the other bosses away for 100 years apiece, the Bonannos weren't on the seating chart. Sonny Black's disgrace became the family's accidental suit of armor, and the men who ran that basement did not exactly hold the line either. Massino, the friend who signed the receipt, became boss and then became the first sitting mafia boss in American history to flip and inform on his own people. Frank Coppa flipped in 2002. Frank Lino flipped the year after. As for Donnie, Joe Pistone walked out the far side of nearly 5 years undercover, testified in cases that fueled more than 100 convictions, and collected a $500 reward check for the trouble. He also collected a $500,000 contract on his head, and the rest of his life lived under a name that wasn't his. The agent got to grow old. The captain who vouched for him became a set of dental records in an evidence file. That's the trade the movie's ending rests on, and it doesn't show you the second half. Donnie Brasco is a good movie, and it does the shrewd thing by cutting away before the worst of it. It gives you the tension, the betrayal, the jewelry coming off a shaking hand, and then it looks politely away right at the point where the true story stops being watchable. The jammed gun, the last words on the basement floor, the severed hands, the year face down in a marsh, none of that makes the final cut. I understand the choice. I just think the part they left out is the only part that tells you who Sonny Black actually was. A man who spent his mornings with his pigeons and spent his last breath telling his own killers to do it properly.